Hello, everyone. Tonight is going to talk about practicing again, and a way that I discovered to practice that I think is quite effective. It involves a couple of things. First of all, it involves a metronome. It involves cards. I call it the card game. Many kids have told me after I show it to them, they go, that's actually pretty cool. Put those somewhere. Put those there for the moment. Um, and the piece, of course. And it was a summer of 1971, I think, and I had to learn a piece relatively quickly. I had 5 weeks, and my first impression was I I didn't have time to make mistakes. I kind of had to play everything 100% correctly right away. Well, most people tell me, well, Jeff, you can't do that. You play it. You're going to slip. You're going to do some things wrong. And I said to them, well, why? When you think of it for a minute, why would that be the case? I mean, can't you do things right if we restrict ourselves? Before I even tell you this method, I must tell you that there's a thing called reaction time. It's purely physical. It's like when your reflexes all of a sudden do something without you thinking about it. You open the freezer and something falls out, and your hand automatically goes to grab it, whatever it is. And that's called reaction. And if you can get it, you've got a pretty quick reaction time. Playing the piano is all reaction time. The problem is when we're first working on something, we are learning to develop that reaction time. We don't have it at first. All those ghosts I talked about. You can't look at the next note and get there if you haven't gotten there a lot of times, and particularly gotten there a lot of times correctly on time. Learning a piece of music is basically, if you really want to play it well, not just noodle around and push the notes down. If you want to learn it, well, it's a habit. It's a physical habit. So how do you develop the habit? And, well, how do you develop the habit? What are the steps to doing that? The biggest one is basically to slow things down a bit. But the problem is when you slow things down enough, the piece no longer sounds like the piece because you're going too slowly. And what happens is people make rhythmic mistakes because they don't know it. I mentioned it last night a little bit. And this is on the fly, this whole little lecture or this talk I'm giving tonight. Yeah. I'm trying to think of where to start. Let me start by playing something, and imagine a kid is learning the notes the first time. And I put up here PJ's Dream. It's a piece I wrote for grade 1 students. But it actually can be played at a slightly higher level where you probably wouldn't know it was grade 1. But let's say he started along and he's playing along. Then all of a sudden he has to stop a second to find those next notes. Checks them out, make sure they're right. We're on that very base level of just learning what's coming. And he's doing this, he might make a mistake and correct it. So he's at the level of preparing. Now, as I've told you, I like to break it down into the little parts. The arrows, as I said. In this piece, you'd have, for a student at that level, I would consider that to be, even though it's two little designs, they're both the same, that would be the first arrow. And let's say that he could play it at that speed, then had to take a little time to get to this next guy. He had to think about those notes. He writes the fingers in, he prepares it. He's now trying to get from that one to the other. Now, if he were to do this, you can hear he stopped in there. But what if I made that stop the tempo, the actual tempo? In other words, 1, 2. Okay, 1, 2. Let's find that on the metronome. 1, 2. Down around, maybe down around 59. That could be, maybe we'll even go lower to 55. And he plays at that speed. That is taking into consideration the time it takes him to get from the first one, to think about it, to get to the second one. So we're now building that as the tempo that his reaction time should be able to pull off. It might not be. We may have to slow it down more. But let's put it at 56. And now he's going to play like this. Now, if he makes it, if he's able to do it, then he has played it at his reaction time. Okay? In other words, he has found his reaction time to that problem of having to slowly get from here to here. And he's only fooling himself if he plays faster and then goes, and then goes in there. We built the reaction time of him to get there by finding out what that speed was and then applied it to the whole thing. Then the habit is being learned correctly. Yeah, it's slow. That doesn't matter as long as you're applying your das and dits and all that stuff. Your loudness is, here I'll go back to this. Da, did. And that could have given him the time to get there. And then now, this is what I suggest everybody does when they're doing it. To really concentrate, I tell them, get the cards. And every time you get one right, pick a number of cards. I don't know, it could be 4 or 5 cards. You pick that many. And every time you get one right, give yourself a card. I just gave myself a card. I'll give it to me because I did do it right. Okay, I'll do it again at 56. Okay. Now he got it right once again. Give himself a card. Now when he feels confident, I know this is supposed to go faster than that. I'm going to kick it up a notch, as Emerald says on his show. So we'll go from 56 to 60. That could be too much. We don't know. And that's the added challenge now. So we'll play it at 60. Now this is the tough spot. And let's assume he makes it. Okay, if he makes it, he gives himself another card. If he doesn't, we would go maybe back to 58. We want to stay within his reaction time. You got to understand what that means. You see people do stuff on the piano, and you're like, how the heck did he get there? Well, he didn't get there when he started playing it. He had to build this reaction time up. Plus, he just did it 3 times correctly. Do you know how many students play something over and over again wrong? Here, let me kind of play act for a second and show you what that sounds like. When I hear people practicing, I hear this. And I hear them correct. No. And the rhythm's off. It's da, bum, bum. The rhythm's off. They play it wrong a few times. They play it right once. They move on. They haven't learned anything. That's the problem. Here, you're your own teacher. You're grading yourself. The only thing you have to be careful of is that you're honest about it. You got to make sure what you're going to be doing first. You know what you're working on. Once you get up to a speed, I always have a pencil. I did not put the pencil out. When I'm done practicing a really tough piece after a day, I would write on my music, I would write 60. That's what I did it at yesterday. I'd probably connect arrows here. I got about 4 hours for the first sentence. We've talked about that. So we got 4 hours arrows for the first sentence. So I would work the second arrow next to the third arrow, maybe going back to my 56 again. Maybe I can't do it there. Maybe it's even slower. Hard to say. But that would be. And the mistake I get there all the time is they go up to the B, they don't play the C. So, how many times you're going to make that mistake? Don't make it a lot of times before you correct it. Correct it right away. Find your reaction speed. If you find that it's 49, then play it at 49. That would be here. Now the 4 on the A, thumb on the C. Look how much time I had to that was well within, of course, my reaction time. But I'm thinking of a student and what he's thinking. Get to the C, and that probably will give him enough time to get there. He will have played it right. He will be getting a card. That will be his own move to do that, judging it himself. It does seem a little bit like, oh my God, you're going to go at speeds like that, it's going to take forever. Let me tell you something. When you've done something right a lot of times, regardless of the speed, and you're playing it the way you would if you were going quicker, you don't do staccatos where you have to do a drop. You want to know that. You want to prepare it. You want to know what you're expecting your mechanism to do. But this is about one of the cleanest ways to practice. You're putting the words together into sentences. You're doing it slowly. You're doing it carefully. You're not making errors. That is, everybody's impatient, and they go quickly, and it takes them a long time to learn a piece they could have learned a lot quicker. Now, understand something. We work at it slowly. All of a sudden, it wants to go faster. It just, assuming you're not learning a slow piece, that goes slowly. If it's a fast piece, the problem is you may not be playing it. You're not playing at the right speed. Here's the way this piece can sound, by the way. Now, you're not going to do that right away. But that's the first sentence. That's the first thing you're trying to create. The sentence lengths are everything. A piece is just a collection of sentences. That's all it is. Now, there's one thing here that kids always have trouble with. It's right at the end of this line. They have to play this, and it's kind of a lot for them at once. I'll play it and show you what it is. And actually, it's just those two measures going into the E at the end. Later we talk about the other, which they don't have much trouble with. But they're doing really two arrows, one with two syllables. The first arrow is this, which they get that one okay. It's when they get to here. Now, can you guess why they have a problem there? From everything we've talked about up to now? Is it the rhythm per se? No. Is it the fingerings? Well, the second finger, if you look at this, has to go over at the end. And then it goes over, and then they play the right hand. The problem they have there is the resultants. Up to now, they've been playing right, left, left. Then they've got to play right, left, both right. And those, they need a lot of time to process those resultants. So we don't even start the metronome at first. We just play the order of hands. Right, left, left, then the right, then the left, then both, then the right. Okay? And we work our way towards it. And yeah, we do the cards. Yes, absolutely. Okay. In other words, we limited the challenges then. We just wanted to get the right fingers on the right notes in the right order. And knowing we're not really doing the rhythm yet, where the rhythm is very simple. It's perpetual motion. It's 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1. and the metronome will do that carefully and accurately for us when we add it. That's funny. Okay. Anyway, so that's the way we approach it. Then I'll say to them, okay, play it again. Try to stay on some kind of beat, and they'll go right, left, get ready for both. Now this. So we go looking for that metronome, that speed on the metronome, okay? Which, I don't know what it is. I'm going to tap on my metronome and find out. Bum, 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 bum. It's telling me about 58. So we'll put the metronome on at 57. We'll get our beat, and we'll make an attempt. He's going to go through his cards. All right, so we make the attempt. I was late on that. I don't know what to do. Okay, slow it down. Go to 52. Try it there. Okay. And then right, okay, I can do it there. Maybe, that could be the case. But remember, everybody, we want you to play it right. What is it? The part where the problem exists, the arrow. And in this case, we have an overlapping arrow. We talked about those. I don't really have to draw it, but I will, because I don't know how well you can see the music here. But that arrow would go from here to here. Right from there to there. The next arrow is going to start here, and he's going to have a lot better time here because this is nowhere near as, what's the word I'm looking for? Dynamic, intensive. This, for a beginning student, this is a little intensive to have to go through these guys. The beginning's not so much. Right, left, left, right, left, left. Then there's a new note. There might be that time in there. We have to adjust to that time. He may want to do without the metronome for a while just to get more attuned to what's going on. But never overwhelm with too much stuff at once. A more seasoned pianist can do a little bit more. He's seen a lot. He's probably going to be looking at stuff he's seen before. For a new student, this is all new territory. And you got to let them do it right. They feel really good when they do it right. And so do I. And listen, I still learn stuff that challenges me, and I've got to really play slow. There was a couple of spots in Debussy's Clair de Lune. I had never played anything exactly the same as some of the spots. I had that metronome down really slow. Nobody would know what I was playing. Believe me. I was playing eighth notes at the speed of whole notes at some spot. I wanted my fingers to do it right. They do it right enough, they start doing it for you. People do not understand that. They throw the sheet music up, they read it, they hack it, they're not really trying to learn the piece. Yes, it takes patience. Let me tell you, oh man, my middle name now. I was always very impatient as a kid. But by the way, I did learn the piece in 1971. I'd learned it in 3 days. I practiced for 3 hours, 4 hours a day. I went through I didn't use 5 cards, I used 52 cards, a deck of cards. I was going to leave no prisoners. I never played any part of that wrong. So I was going so slowly, I couldn't. There was no way. But did I do it perfectly each time and get a card? No. Sometimes I didn't give myself a card. I went, no, that wasn't comfortable. That's a key word here. You'll know when you're getting comfortable. But now to mention the other thing, and just to review, mention it again, to reiterate, rhythms don't sound the same when you're going slowly. They don't sound like the piece, but it doesn't matter. The hand is learning the proper rhythm if you've counted it out right. What was the piece I was doing before? Where a student, she had to go from eighth notes into quarter notes, and we were going so slowly that she played the eighth notes, and when she got to the quarter notes, she played them at the speed of eighth notes. Because she wasn't sure where I'm trying to think if that book is out. I could show you that I think the book is here. Yeah. Let me just show you the part because it was funny. It just happened to me in my teaching today. We were doing a piece called The Winter Scene, and it's in this wonderful book by Gillock. And it's here. And she played, let me see, where are those quarter notes? Oh, right here, yeah. And we were playing really slowly. But she got there and went. She kept going the speed of the eighth notes, so she went up like this. And I said, no, we have to. Those are 2 beat notes each. So if she was playing, let's say at this speed, let's do a tap thing here. She was playing around. Bum 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 bum. About 88, let's say 88. Yeah, I think we were even going slower than that, to be honest with you. And that's when we got into trouble. Which doesn't sound like the piece when you get there. So this was a typical example of this. That's the arrow. That's all we're working on. Now later on, and I made a finger mistake. See, I don't know this piece that well. And I don't like making mistakes like that. They're uncalled for. But I was just trying to give you an idea how fast the piece eventually goes. It can probably even go a little quicker than that. But I have no reaction time at that speed. I have none right now. Maybe a little. We went over it today. But I know that about myself. I am not playing that. I'll go a little faster than the 80 we were just at. I could handle that reaction time. But I cannot handle a final reaction time right now. I don't know the piece. I know what I've seen of it. I know we prepared all the fingers, made a big change over here. That was a big deal. But that's all in the preparation phase. You don't start playing it, you prepare. And then kids use fingers that, hey, you know what? They were in the book. And sometimes the fingers in the book are just not that good. I'll be honest with you. So, I call it the card game. All the kids know what I mean when I say that. In fact, if I show you some of these cards, one of my students wrote this probably 12 years ago. You will see, card game. It's really a self-check system. Are there steps? Well, the steps are prepare. Know what it is you're going to do. Know the fingers you're going to use. Know where the part is that you are having the trouble with. Number 2, play at a speed where that tough spot can be done. It's within your reaction time. Nothing can go too slowly. Okay? Make sure that your does and dits and your meter is being represented correctly. Here it's not. That would be incorrect. Go slower and play. So at least you can hear the jellos. Jello, jello, jello. And use your pedal. If it calls for pedal, which the beginning doesn't. That's another thing. The pedal can be a little dicey when you're playing slowly. Yeah, because when you go quicker, you can get away with pedalings you probably wouldn't like the sound of when you go slowly. So that's an iffy thing, the pedal. But just do the best you can. When you get the speed up, that's when you start worrying about where the pedal is going to be used. But it doesn't mean you can't use it when you're playing slowly. You can use it. Make it sound nice. Make believe it's a slow piece when you start it. Except technically, make sure technically you're playing it the way you will be playing it when it achieves the tempo that it wants. That's basically it. The idea is to play it right. It's to play it right a lot. Nobody thinks you can do it, but you can. Reaction time is not learned by hacking away at something, because generally you're learning to play it wrong. You play something incorrectly and then correct it. You know the way people practice. I mean, you've heard it. You've probably done it. I did it when I was a kid. No, 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 no. And the no, 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 the stutter, the whole thing. You're learning that. You're literally learning that. So with this method, and it's pretty, by the way, I think I told you I learned it in 3 days, but I could not play it up to speed for 2 weeks. The metronome was down still pretty slow, but I had memorized it. I could play it. I knew exactly where everything went, but my reaction time was still slow, not super slow. But within 2 weeks of sitting every day and playing it, not 4 hours a day, I reduced that practice to maybe an hour a day. And I would sit and just bring the metronome up ever so slowly. And by the time I played it 5 weeks later, it was an old piece. It was like an old friend. My hands could play it without me thinking about it. And I am talking 4 hours a day at the beginning, though, which most people don't have the luxury of that. So anyway, I just thought I'd offer this to you. It's under practicing. It's called the card game. And it just puts you in check as to what you've accomplished. And that's really all it's about. So I hope it was enlightening and maybe gives you some food for thought as to how to approach practicing. At first, it is a little dull. It's a little boring at first. But when you see the results, wow, you're going to be real happy, real happy. So anyway, I think that's enough for tonight. I don't know how long that was, but I'll see you tomorrow night. I've got other things I definitely want to talk about. But I'll be mentioning the card game along the way, I'm sure of it. So keep it in mind, the card game. So anyway, I'll see you tomorrow. When words fail, music speaks.